Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world obsessed with quick wins, fast outcomes, and instant gratification. But here's the truth. Chasing results without falling in love with the work is like wanting a harvest without planting the seeds. If you only care about the finish line, you'll burn out before you even get halfway through the race. The real power comes when you shift your focus away from the scoreboard and get locked in on the process, the practice, and the daily grind. That's where growth lives, that's where discipline is built, and that's what eventually creates the results you're chasing. We love the sound of results, promotions, milestones, hitting a target, crossing the finish line. They feel good because they give us a moment of validation, a signal that our effort paid off. But here's the catch. Results fade. You can celebrate a win today, but tomorrow you wake up and you're right back where you started, needing something new to chase. That cycle never ends. And if the only thing fueling you is the high of results, you're setting yourself up to run out of steam. Think about it like this. Results are snapshots. They freeze a moment in time, but life keeps moving. Habits, on the other hand, are the engine. They don't just give you one moment. They give you momentum. You don't become healthy because you hit a weight goal one time. You become healthy because you build the habit of eating better, moving your body, and taking care of yourself consistently. The result is temporary, but the habit is the lifestyle that sustains it. That's why so many people yo-yo with success. They grind hard to hit a goal. Then once they get there, they let off the gas because they never built habits to keep them going. It's like cramming for an exam. You might pass the test, but you don't actually master the subject. Real mastery comes from habit. Real growth comes from showing up over and over again, even when there isn't a deadline or a trophy waiting at the end of it. When you get obsessed with habits, you stop chasing temporary highs. You stop needing applause to keep you moving, because habits run on autopilot. They don't need constant motivation. They only need consistency. And once you've locked them in, they stick with you. Habits are what carry you when motivation runs out. Habits are what build discipline without you having to think twice. That's why habits outlast results every single time. Here's something powerful. Your habits shape your identity. If you see yourself as a runner instead of someone training for a race, then running doesn't end when the race does. It's just who you are now. If you see yourself as a disciplined person instead of someone trying to get promoted, then your work ethic isn't tied to a position. It's tied to your character. Results might boost your ego for a moment, but habits define who you are long term. And the truth is, habits. One good habit creates a ripple effect into other areas of your life. Waking up early teaches you discipline, which bleeds into how you handle your work, which spills over into how you handle relationships. Results can't do that. They're too shallow, but habits, they're foundational. They don't just give you success. They teach you how to sustain it, and sustaining success matters more than tasting it once. So, if you want something lasting, stop obsessing over the scoreboard. Start obsessing over the small things you do every day, because that's where the permanent change happens. You'll lose the excitement of a result after a few days, but you won't lose the strength you build from habit. You'll forget the exact number on the scale or the date you hit that milestone, but you won't forget the discipline you built to get there. Habits aren't about one win. They're about every win stacked together until they turn into who you are. Most people love the idea of success until they meet resistance. They set a goal, start the journey, and as soon as the road gets bumpy, they lose their fire. That's because they were only obsessed with the finish line, not the process. When you're fixated on results, every setback feels like failure. But when you're locked in on the process, setbacks are just part of the training. You don't see them as stop signs. You see them as stepping stones. That shift is what builds resilience. Resilience isn't about never falling down. It's about how quickly you get back up. And the truth is, if your only fuel is results, you won't get back up very often. Because when the results aren't there, you feel like you've lost your reason to keep going. But if you've fallen in love with the process itself, the practice, the grind, the work, you don't need the immediate validation of results to stay committed. That's where resilience starts to grow. Think about an athlete. The best athletes don't show up to practice only because of the championship game. They show up because they've built an obsession with the practice itself. They run drills, lift weights, and review tapes long before the crowd shows up. The championship is the result, but resilience is forged in the practice no one else sees. If you only chase the championship, you'll burn out. But if you love the practice, you'll outlast everyone else. Obsession with the process also toughens your mindset. because the process isn't glamorous. It's repetitive, sometimes boring, often difficult. It's early mornings and late nights. It's sacrifice without applause. If you can fall in love with that, if you can find energy in the work itself, then obstacles won't shake you. You don't fold when things get hard, because you were never in it just for the easy moments. Resilience grows when you don't need comfort to keep going. And here's the secret. The process trains your character. Every repetition you put in, every failure you learn from, every challenge you face without quitting, all of it builds mental toughness. You're not just getting better at the skill, you're getting stronger as a person. Results can't do that. Results only tell you what you achieved in one moment. The process tells you what you're becoming, day after day. That's the kind of resilience that doesn't fade. When you're obsessed with the process, you stop fearing setbacks. A failure doesn't wreck you, because you weren't living for the result anyway. You see failure as feedback. You see roadblocks as redirection. You keep moving because the process itself is the goal. That mindset makes you unshakable. It makes you someone who doesn't just survive challenges, but grows stronger through them. That's the essence of resilience, the ability to keep showing up when most people tap out. So the question isn't whether you want results, everyone does. The real question is, do you love the process enough to keep going when results are delayed? Can you show up when there's no applause, no reward, no proof that it's working yet? Because that's where resilience is built. It's built in the silence, it's built in the grind, and it's only when you fall in love with that you become someone who can weather anything life throws at you. One of the most frustrating things in life is putting in work and not seeing the results you expected. You can do everything right, follow the plan, and still fall short of the target. That's because results are influenced by factors you can't control. Timing, market conditions, other people's choices, or even plain luck. If your happiness and motivation depend on those results, you're handing over your power to circumstances you can't dictate. That's a losing game. What you can control is effort. You can decide how much energy you bring today. You can decide whether you give half effort or full effort. You can decide if you show up when you don't feel like it. Effort is yours. It's not dependent on anyone else's decision or external validation. And when you lock into effort, you always have something to be proud of, even if the scoreboard doesn't light up the way you wanted it to. Think about it like planting a seed. You can control how much water it gets, how much sunlight you expose it to, and how well you nurture the soil, but you can't control how fast it grows. That's the result. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take longer. If you obsess over the sprout, you'll feel defeated. But if you obsess over watering and tending the soil, you'll stay consistent until it grows. That's the difference between focusing on effort versus results. This shift also changes how you measure success. If success only means hitting the exact result, then you'll feel like a failure most of the time, because life doesn't always give instant payoffs. But if success means showing up and giving your best effort, then you win every single day. That's a more sustainable way to live, because you can't guarantee outcomes, but you can guarantee the work you put in, and that guarantee keeps you grounded. When you focus on effort, you also stay motivated longer. Results can trick you into impatience. You start asking, why hasn't it happened yet? Why am I not there yet? That frustration leads people to quit early. But if you only measure your day by effort, you don't fall into that trap. You know progress is happening, even if it's invisible right now. And that mindset keeps you moving when others give up. It's not about when it pays off. It's about who you're becoming through effort. Another powerful thing happens when you value effort. You build confidence. Not the kind of confidence that depends on whether someone applauds you, but the kind that comes from knowing you gave everything you had. That's unshakable. You can walk away from a situation with your head high because you know you controlled what was in your control. Results may slip away, but the pride of effort sticks with you. That kind of confidence doesn't need a scoreboard to validate it. So, if you want real power, stop anchoring yourself to outcomes you can't predict. Anchor yourself to effort. Anchor yourself to the daily grind. The little things you choose to do that stack up over time, that's where your influence lies. That's where your control is. Because while you can't promise yourself a result, you can always promise yourself effort. And when you keep that promise, you build a life that doesn't rise and fall on things you can't control. One of the hardest things to accept is that progress often happens in silence. You might be working day after day, and nothing looks different on the outside. No applause, no breakthrough, no big moment that proves your effort is paying off. But here's the truth. The process is already changing you even before the results are visible. Every rep, Every practice, every repetition, is shaping you in ways you can't always measure yet. That growth comes first, the results come later. That's why so many people quit too early. They assume if results don't show up fast, the work must not be working. But the process is doing its job in the background. It's training your discipline, it's sharpening your skill, it's teaching you patience. Just because you can't see immediate proof doesn't mean progress isn't happening. The process is like roots growing underground, invisible at first, but essential for the strength of the tree later. Think about learning a new skill. At the beginning it feels clumsy and awkward. You make mistakes, you stumble, and you question whether you're even capable. But every mistake is carving new pathways in your brain. Every repetition is building muscle memory. Long before you feel competent, the process is laying the foundation for competence. The results will come, but the process is already making you better, even if you don't recognize it in the moment. When you obsess over results, you miss the hidden wins along the way. You overlook the fact that you're more disciplined today than you were last month. You ignore the growth in your resilience, your patience, your consistency. Results are visible, but the qualities you're building in the process are invisible, until one day they suddenly show up all at once. The process is not wasted time. The process is transformation happening behind the scenes. And the process doesn't just make you better at the skill, it makes you better as a person. Showing up consistently teaches responsibility. Pushing through challenges teaches grit. Practicing when you're tired teaches self-control. None of these things require results to exist. They're byproducts of the work itself. That's why the process always pays you first, long before you ever cash in with visible results. You're becoming stronger, sharper, and more capable simply by showing up. This is why patience is such a critical part of growth. If you only measure your progress by results, you'll get impatient and discouraged. But if you understand that the process is building you even now, you won't need results to validate you. You'll know every hour invested is shaping your character, whether or not anyone else can see it yet. That understanding gives you staying power. It keeps you committed when others give up. So instead of asking when will I see the results, ask how is the process shaping me today? Because it always is. Maybe it's teaching you discipline. Maybe it's building your endurance. Maybe it's sharpening your focus. Whatever it is, the process is already at work. The results are just the proof that shows up later. But the real reward, the version of you that's getting better every day, that starts right now, in the process. The fastest way to burn out is to only chase the outcome. When all you care about is the result, every step feels like a chore, every effort feels heavy, and every delay feels like failure. But when you learn to actually enjoy the work, the weight lifts, the grind turns into growth, the repetition turns into rhythm, and the journey stops feeling like punishment. That's when results start to flow without you even obsessing over them. They show up because you showed. Think about the people who seem unstoppable. They're not necessarily the smartest or the most talented. What separates them is they've learned to love the process others avoid. They find joy in practicing the basics. They get satisfaction from the routine others find boring. They're fueled by the daily work itself, not just the highlight moments. And because of that, results chase them. Success becomes the side effect of how much they enjoy showing up. Enjoying the work doesn't mean it's always easy. It means you've shifted your perspective. Instead of seeing the process as an obstacle between you and success, you start seeing it as the very thing that makes success possible. You lean into the challenge, you take pride in the grind, and you learn to appreciate the small wins along the way. That mindset turns consistency into second nature, and consistency is what eventually delivers the results you wanted all along. The best part of enjoying the work is that it takes the pressure off. If you're obsessed with results, every day feels like a scoreboard check. Did I win today or lose today? That constant measuring drains you. But if you enjoy the work, every day feels like progress, no matter what the scoreboard says. You don't have to wait for the big win to feel fulfilled. The work itself gives you fulfillment right now, and the results just add to it later. When you enjoy the work, you also stay in the game longer. Most people quit not because they can't reach the goal, but because they can't stand the process it takes to get there. But if the process energizes you, quitting isn't even on the table. You're not grinding just to reach an end point. You're living in the rhythm of the work itself. And the longer you stay in the game, the more inevitable results become, because time compounds effort. Another thing that happens when you fall in love with the work is that success feels lighter. You're not clinging to results as proof of your worth. You don't need external validation to feel accomplished. The satisfaction comes from the effort you put in, from the pride of knowing you gave your best. And ironically, that's what makes people want to follow you, trust you, and reward you. Results become magnetic when they're not the thing you're chasing with desperation. So the key isn't to chase results harder. The key is to shift your focus until you enjoy the work itself. Find the joy in showing up, the pride in practice, the energy in effort. Because when you do, you won't have to force success. You'll create it without even realizing it. The results will simply be the byproduct of you loving the work enough to keep going, keep improving, and keep building something that lasts.